was challenging for us to see the slow decline at first because we didn't quite understand it, and it was really frustrating. But then the rapid decline was really the hardest part of the whole thing. Just to see this guy deteriorate so fast was really tough, really tough part about it. And that's a thing, though, that everyone who's dealing with dementia family has to recognize, that that's what happens. You kind of accommodate them for quite a long time, and then all of a sudden there will be this rapid thing. And all we could focus on was thinking about how he looked after us when we were young, and now it was our turn to look after him, and he was incapable of looking after himself, right? So
we at Dementia Solutions have come to notice how invaluable it is for family caregivers to learn about the stories of others. It has greatly helped families to not feel alone. A warm welcome to all those who are listening or watching to this interview right now. My name is Karen Tyrell, and I am the CEO of Personalized Dementia Solutions Incorporated. I have been supporting families over the past 25 years, and I really have noticed how invaluable it is when families learn from each other. And I've been working on sharing interviews of our past and current clients so that you can learn from their situations to help you through your journey. So today I have two special people joining me. I have Ross and Dana, who are siblings who were caring for their dad. And I had met Dana through the work she was doing in her community previously, but we really connected when she reached out to me in January 2021 with concerns about her father. And then from there, I ended up meeting Ross and their wonderful dad. And I was just so fortunate to be involved with this fun-loving family on their journey. So welcome, the two of you.
Thanks, Karen.
thank you. Nice to be here.
It's nice to have you here. And so maybe let's start off with sharing a little overview about what you were going through, what you had to go through with your dad.
Okay, I'll kick it off, Ross, and then you can chime in or whatever works. So I think my dad maybe started to have a bit of like cognitive decline quite a few years ago, even before my mom passed away. Ross and I never noticed it, but my mom would complain about it. So it was so minor that only someone, I think, who was with him all the time might notice. Either that or she was hypersensitive, but one way or the other, that was happening. And then eventually my mom passed away, and shortly after that, my dad had a stroke, and then all of the cognitive decline became really, really obvious to us. Not to the point of having to have him in care or anything like that, but enough that we were starting to be concerned about him and knew that he couldn't continue to live in the house that he'd shared with my mom before she passed away, which was actually on the Sunshine Coast, and we're in like the Greater Vancouver area. So that meant him, we had to make a decision along with him that he would leave the Sunshine Coast and come down to where we were so that we could all be together. We're a pretty tight family, so that didn't really disturb him, that he'd be closer to his kids and his grandkids and stuff like that. So that part was okay. And he went into independent living. Just down the street from me, he would walk up, with his cane, walk up and visit me during the day. And, it was just really lovely. Ross lived not too far away, and it really worked very well for a while. I think we really hit a roadblock when COVID hit.
Mm-hmm.
And we realized, as a family, yeah, we're not kind of the family that can just look at our dad through glass. We better get him the heck out of there. So So we pulled him out the day that they announced the lockdowns on COVID. We took him out of that home. Ross has two little kids. We also took them out of school. And pretty much the lot of us moved to our house on the Sunshine Coast and co-cared for my dad, co-homeschooled the kids, like all just lived together as a big family. And that's when we really got to see a lot more of what was happening with his cognitive decline as well. There were a lot of actually dangerous situations of like leaving an empty pot on the stove and forgetting about it, things like that, where we realized, as COVID restrictions ended and we were able to, move back into our regular lives, what was going to be, how are we going to care for dad? And by then his cognitive decline was enough that he couldn't go back into independent living. So he needed to go to, I forget all the terminologies for it, but Parkwood. So long-term care, not long-term care yet.
Parkwood was independent with some assistance.
With some assistance. Yeah, he had to go to have some assistance, right? And so he had a hard time there, actually. Ross, do you feel like taking over the story from here for a while, or do you want me to keep riffing? Okay, so he had a bit of a hard time there because he really actually needed more care than what they provide, more supervision, not care, but supervision. Also, he had a little dog that was really giving him a sense of purpose in life, a reason to get up, someone to care for. And he became unable to care for his beautiful little Charlotte, forgetting to feed her, not treating her well. She started to suffer, and then she started doing things that she shouldn't do in the home as well. So we kind of had a reckoning with the management there, where it was time for dad. First of all, time for Charlotte, the dog, to go, which really was so hard on our whole family. But on my dad, he lost his purpose to get up in the morning. He lost that sense of having somebody else to care for, serving, a sense of being in service. And I think we really saw a lot more of a decline after that.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually we had to move him into, what is it? Long-term care yet, or assisted? I can't remember. I always forget the terminology. Yeah, and that was really tough and tricky as well, because there's just so much less freedom. Like, dad didn't have a sense of being an independent person after that. Also, we were waiting for a bed from Fraser Health, and he could no longer stay at assisted living. He had to leave, but we didn't have a bed yet with Fraser Health, so we had to go to an interim long-term care. So a private one, yeah. So he ended up having a move from being all together with family and life is great, and he's got his grandkids and his kids and everything's all together, to being in a separate apartment, and then having his dog gone, and then moving to a place where his freedoms were taken away, and then having to move again once we got him a bed in Fraser Health. And so I think that is kind of highlights some of the challenges, some of the joys, but also some of the challenges that we went through once he got into the final long-term care. It wasn't long after that he passed away. He got COVID shortly after he moved in there, or he had a urinary tract infection, actually had to be hospitalized, got COVID while he was in the hospital. Then he had a UTI again. And it was just like a very quick, it went from a long, slow decline into a very quick decline. So, yeah.
Physical changes. Oh my gosh. Yes. And I have such wonderful memories when I was, first meeting your dad when he was at Parkwood with Charlotte, and going out for coffee, all of us together, so I can get to know him and get to know your situation. So I'm, looking back, would you say the toughest part was watching him change?
Yeah, because dad's Dad's always been like a really strong and active guy, really strong and really active, and running sports boats and motorcycles and chainsaws and cutting down trees. And, you know, he's always so strong. And then, and also just like the rock, the pillar of the family. And then it was challenging for us to see the slow decline at first because we didn't quite understand it, and it was really frustrating. But then the rapid decline was really the hardest part of the whole thing. Just to see this guy deteriorate so fast was really tough, really tough part about it. And that's a thing, though, that everyone who's dealing with dementia family has to recognize, that that's what happens. You kind of accommodate them for quite a long time, and then all of a sudden there will be this rapid thing. And all we could focus on was thinking about how he looked after us when we were young, and now it was our turn to look after him, and he was incapable of looking after himself, right? So it was a very loving time, but like I wasn't quite prepared for how this pillar could deteriorate so quickly. But
yeah, I think I would add to that, like, not only was he like the big, strong dad that was suddenly like a very frail, frightened and
infantile,
confused young man. I mean, man, but also our dad was always very happy, very content. We'd call him the happy Buddha and rub his belly. And he got really cranky, like really cranky and agitated. And that was pretty heartbreaking. And it really reflected, you know, how his frustration inside.
Oh, I didn't realize that, because when I was with him, when he started to attend the Adult Cognitive Wellness Center, which was open during COVID, which was a center for seniors to come and get social stimulation, intellectual stimulation, as well as caregivers to have a little bit of a break and not have to worry where they are and what they're into and what they're doing. When he came to that, he was always so happy and making us laugh and singing, and you know, we had the country music going, and he was just a character. And I really enjoyed my time when he would come to that program when I was on duty to be there to help out.
Yeah, that's his 100% character coming through. And I think like things like that are so important. Like that gave him something to look forward to. It gave him something that gave him some purpose. It gave him some camaraderie. It gave him some stimulation. And, you know, that was harder and harder for us to give and him to receive in his living surroundings and stuff. So it was really important.
Yeah, and it wasn't long. He only came for maybe a season. I think it was like summer and maybe into the fall or something like that. It wasn't a whole a long period, but it was enough that I noticed it was making him happy. And when he'd show up and he'd be, even that one time it was Canada Day, he had Canada Day sunglasses and he was all dressed in red and his cap. And, you know, it was really, really cool to see him excited to come and show up for this party that we were having.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow. And so, you know, let's maybe touch on some of the positives of this journey. Did it bring the two of you closer together, or was that always there?
Yeah, it did, because we're always pretty tight, and we cooperate, we get along well, so we worked well together. So
yeah, I think
the other night,
or go ahead. I was just going to say, I think I don't think we were aware that it was bringing us closer together, because we are a tight family to start with, and my mom had passed, so we kind of stepped up to, you know, be that's the trio. But I do think, like, in retrospect, Ross and I both been really cognizant of like, oh wow, like the thing that was bringing us together, like that's when we would see each other. Like, oh great, let's go get dad, let's take him to the park, or let's go and take dad out for dinner, or I'll meet you over at dad's, right? So when that was gone, I think we became aware of like, okay, oh, we have to like self-motivate ourselves to do that now, because it was a natural built-in thing that did bring us together.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
another thing was just getting closer to dad at the end too, because we would just like spend so much more time with them, right? So even though he was sort of fading, it was fun just sitting with him, you know, not even doing stuff with him, just sitting with him more and just being company. So I felt in the end, like just I got closer and closer to my dad too, as kind of as his brain was getting further and further away. But yeah, so it did bring us all closer together as a family to go through this end of life with my dad.
Yeah, that reminds me, Ross, like one of the things that we did with our dad that was so great is we had a lot. My mom had been a great record keeper for photography, like of photographs in albums. And then we had like just so many photos from our generations past. And so we could sit and just like, that's all we did in the end days was going through photo albums again and again and again and again. And the stories would change each time because he'd be talking about other people in his head. But, you know, like it was a great way to share time together and share stories and continue to learn about his life.
Wow. And you were also innovative with a few other things, such as technology, bringing in some technology when he was living in independent, the Parkwood Independent Home. So do you want to share a little bit about that? The device by the
Well,
door that
you
was
reminded me of one
reminded
thing
him?
that worked. It worked for a while. It didn't work very long though, but there was just sort of an in-between stage for some of the technology work. And we did get him this thing from Facebook called Portal, which is designed to be a like a social media video chatting system that you only need to talk to. So he could, it was really hard. We had to write down a list, but if we could get him to say, "Hey, Portal, call Dana," and then he could just start up a video conversation without having to like dial or worry about numbers or things like that. Yeah. So he could just say, "Hey, Portal, call Dana." But I have to say it was pretty funny because it was just kind of the cusp of the assistant technology of Siri and things like that. And it was pretty funny about us trying to get him to use more voice things and writing down, you know, commands and stuff. And he would learn, like, he would say like, "Hey, Portal, play some music." And the music would start and it would be, "Thank you very much." Right. So I just thought that was really fun. And he would, oh, it's funny. We have a portal in our kitchen here, and me talking about this has just turned it on a few times. So I have to stop saying the actual instruction. But yeah, it was really good for him for a little while to get in touch with us. Was the social media cameras that you talked to. That was good.
Yeah, I think that worked out excellently, actually, because the camera would catch, he would sneak out of his room at night and wander the halls.
That's the other camera. That's not the portal. That's the 𝐈𝐧-𝒂𝒂 just camera that we shot. Yeah, so we had a security camera that we just had inside his door, shining on his door. So we always knew when he would come in and go out. And you could talk through the camera. So if he was going out, we would know because it would trigger him by the door and we could say, "Hey, Dad, where are you going?" Right. So, and yeah, and he got more confused by phones in the end too. So it was really good to have all these microphones and things that we could talk to him. And he never thought it was creepy we were spying on him. So that was okay.
No, well,
but we couldn't see his apartment really. We could only see the front door really.
Well, I would turn it on and just talk to him like, "Hey, Dad, are you there?" Because it wasn't on his old apartment, right? But he'd hear it and I'd be like, "Come over by the door." So he'd come over to the door and then I'd say, "Where's your phone?" And he'd like, "I don't know, where's my phone?" And so I'd talk him into finding his phone. And then I'd be like, "Okay, so when you hear it, you have to push the green button." And then I'd phone him and then I could talk to him. But if I just tried to phone him without that direction on, like, you have to go to your phone and you have to find your phone and you have to push a button, then we never would have been able to get a hold of him. So, and then for a while we were looking into some tracking software as well when he was wandering out of the home and getting lost. And a couple of times we needed to involve the police to find him. And we actually didn't implement that because we moved him into the full-time care before we kind of fulfilled on that. But that was another option that we were looking at. So
just wondering, what sort of lessons do you feel that you are taking away from all of this experience?
one of my big lessons is what goes around comes around. Dad cared for his family so much. He had such a big heart, so much generosity, so much love and care for us that it just is like, it's just natural that that would be returned, you know? And so kind of, I think it motivated Ross and I too, to remember that in our lives, like this is the cycle that we want to keep repeating, is a cycle of love and care, whether you're the child or whether you're the adult with dementia. So yeah, what you put into it, you get out.
And what about you, Ross?
Yeah. Yeah, and the biggest thing I did learn that's kind of tangential to what Jana says, though, but is that this is life and that's what's going to happen to me. So now I know, you know, if I'm lucky, that's how I'm gonna end up. So it was just really good kind of being aware of my own fate and future, and yeah, and part of it was we brought the kids in all the time so they would see how kind I was to my father, so that when I'm in that state, they're going to be kind to me, right? And also, like Dana said, just the cycle too, because you know, the parents treat the kids great, so loving when they're infants and they can't defend for themselves, and then it's the kids' job to take care of the parents when they're infantile and can't take care of themselves, right? So there was big lessons in experiencing that.
I think, you know, all of this caregiving was done together with Ross's and my kids too. And my kids are 10 years older than Ross's kids. There's a big age gap, but this is an entirely a family affair. And our kids, as much as Ross and I experienced my dad's dementia and the journey, so did our kids. They were intimately involved. And so they know too. They know how we handled it. They know what was successful and what was challenging and what didn't work. And so I think that gives us both a lot of comfort that should we be in the same boat.
So let me just emphasize, should you be?
Yes.
It's not always in you know, passed down through the generations for families. It can be a sporadic type of situation. It's not necessarily a familial type of dementia that you might have had with your dad. So we'll just keep the hope that let's hope there will be cures in the very near future, so that no other families have to go through this. But in the meantime, there's so much to learn, and there's so much of support that is still needed for these families that are going through this journey. And, you know, when you mentioned full circle, do you want to talk a little bit about the last few months of his life and or the last few days and how that impacted you?
Yeah.
Well, Dana took off.
Yeah, my dad's, so it was like a long, slow decline. And, you know, to be honest, in our family, our mom had medically assisted dying, and we knew that was not my dad's wishes to, you know, live a life without a quality of life. And so there was like this part of us that was hoping the decline would hurry up, because this wasn't a place where he was happy. But then, and so it was a long time. And then all of a sudden it was like 3 days basically. And, you know, I had just left for 2 months out of the country, like literally just left 2 days prior, and everything was status quo. And all of a sudden I got a call that, oh, Dad has a fever. He's kind of sick. Like, oh, okay. All right. But Ross was going to be there, so that's fine. And then the next thing, it was kind of like, yeah, he's like on his way out. And for me, that was really hard, being away. And, you know, even thinking about, oh, I should go back. And then, you know, us having a family discussion about like, well, what would be the purpose of that? It really would be for me, for our, you know, not for Dad so much. And Ross was there by his side, like ceaselessly. And I was able to, again, like technology, I was able to FaceTime with him. And even when he was so much on his way out that he was not really there, I could still like sing songs to him And I remember the nurses there just telling me that of all the senses, like hearing is like one of the last to go. And they just like put my heart at ease of like, and even like he was not non-responsive at this point. And when I could sing to him, he reached his hand up, and like I was on video. So he reached his hand up and you could see that there was a connection. So that really helped me a lot. And then just like knowing that he and Ross were together was actually just such a beautiful comfort for me.
Yeah, I've had the privilege of holding both my parents' hands as they pass away, and I really see that as a real big privilege that not all kids get to experience. So yeah, so in the end though, it was really kind of okay and peaceful. Like Dan is saying, everybody knew his time was up and he knew it. And yeah, he had some minor thing like Dana says fever, maybe it was a fever, and they called me and I went and I sat with them, I don't know, maybe 12 hours or something like that. But it was actually a really nice time for me because I just like, I knew it was over. I knew it was done. I was waiting, right? And then he took a couple breaths and he didn't take any more. And I went, oh, that's it. So it was actually like a relief and a beautiful moment. And I'll be lucky if I have the same fate. So.
Well, all I have to say is that your father was so fortunate to have the two of you, to be with him, and to, all the memories that you have together. And, I'm sure during his difficult years, he may not have been able to articulate that he was grateful for you, but I'm sure he felt that.
Oh yeah. Oh no, he would. He had
Yeah.
his ways. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. When he struck us with his cane, we knew he really meant we love you.
Aw.
You know him. He was a jokester.
Yeah, oh yeah, he was a fun joker. So, if you had to give any advice to other families, what would you want to say?
I would
If
say,
you're just entering into this, it's a journey. It's like a big hike, and you just got to be prepared, and you got to pack your backpack and put on your good shoes and be ready to just do this journey. And it's really hard and it really hurts, but there's lots of beautiful moments in it too. And it is just the cycle of life too. And honestly, seriously, another thing is don't be afraid to ask for help from other people too. I mean, it was just kind of Dana's and my journey to do together, but we had all the love from my wife and partner and Dana's children and stuff too, right? So it was kind of a group, but also reach out more. There's community help, and then there's other organizations like yours, like Dementia Solutions, and it helped us a lot working with you and sharing some of the burden help too, because it was a lot on our shoulders. So it was nice to get some professional help to take some of that weight off. And then it was just great that the whole family was trying to do their part too, right? But yeah, so my suggestion is like, just be prepared, because it's a hard thing to do. But there's lots of resources and lots of people to help. And so try and reach out and create a network of care when you're looking after a senior with dementia. So.
yeah, I think we were so blessed to have each other and to have our family as involved as we were. Like we were at such an advantage over so many people. And even with that built-in community and support, we still reached out for more. We still reached out to you, Karen, and to variety of different places to get the support. And it was invaluable. Like even sometimes just for sometimes what you gave us was peace of mind. Like this, yeah, this is just the way it is. And yeah, you're doing everything you can. And, like just having a third party to give you that sense of confidence and acceptance was super important. Yeah.
Nice. Nice. Wow. Well, It was quite the journey. You survived. You left with so much learnings from it as well. And you continue to stay strong as a family. So I really hope that you never have to go through this journey again. But I want to thank you for sharing a little glimpse of what you had to go through so that other families may find some new ideas for them so that they can cope better on their journey. So I appreciate you doing this. And we just want to remind everyone who is listening that you don't have to journey alone. There are supports. So please feel free to reach out to us. You can learn more by going to our website, dementiasolutions.ca, and to know that there are people here who want to help and want to make sure that you survive this journey and are not having too much scar tissue because of it. And that's what we like to try to do, is to reduce the extra stress that can happen. So thank you again, both of you, for doing this.
Thank you, Care, for all your help. Thank you for
you,
everything you did
Karen.
for my dad. We know he really appreciated you and always loved to see you. And you did a lot of work for our family, and we can't thank you enough for that.
100%.
Thank you, Ross. Thanks, Dana.